Lily, welcome to the Breen Show.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Lily DiPaulo. I'm a student currently in the math PhD program at the University of Pittsburgh. I came here, actually, Florida Tech, for my undergrad, where I did my bachelor's also in math. Right now, I'm still trying to get through the initial coursework of grad school, but I'm heavily interested in starting research early. I'm trying to stick to mostly geometry, but my interests are really all around the board. So I even collaborate with some professors here, and I collaborate with some of the students from here on whatever work that they're trying to do. I want to be helpful wherever I can.
Awesome. So there's a lot of questions I have.
Sure.
So what made you want to choose math?
That's actually a question I ask myself a lot. So when I was young, I sort of just learned whatever. Right, do my elementary school, middle school, high school. And then they went, okay, you have to graduate. Well, I don't know what to do. So I came here for aerospace engineering. Right, and this is a reasonable choice of school for aerospace engineering.
Yes, it's well known for it.
Yeah. And then after my first semester, I went, I don't want to do aerospace engineering. And so I was doing physics. Because I was like, that makes sense. I want to study how things work, maybe how propulsion systems work. And then my second semester, I took a bunch of math classes. And I went, I don't want to do physics, I want to do math. It was just a matter of the right classes at the right time. And I went, yeah, this is what I want to do instead. So I switched my major, joined the math department. And since then, I've just been doing math. I mean, I don't think there will be another time when I switch up, but it could very well happen.
And what was your experience like throughout your undergraduate program?
Very chaotic, but in a good way.
Yeah, they really put the pressure on here.
Yeah, when I first came here, I didn't really know what I was doing at all, because I came here a little bit younger than usual. So I was like, okay, let me just do well in classes and see where it takes me. And then I suddenly got involved with everything. I have to deal with my department. I have to deal with student government. I have to deal with as many activities and societies I could possibly join. And that made things super chaotic my second and third semesters. And then after my second semester here, I had been in talks with Dr. Chinali, the dean of the math department. And he said, well, you don't really have enough classes left to take to do a third year here. So it would be best if you graduated this year. And I went, oh, I have to apply to grad school now. And so my third semester was super chaotic. I was trying to juggle all the things that I had started, all of the societies I had joined, and like student government, stuff like that. And now I had to apply to 20 grad schools.
Wait, so you said before your third year, so did you graduate after 2 years?
I graduated here in 2 years, yes.
That's very impressive.
Maybe. It was some combination of the circumstances.
Well, how'd you do that? Did you get a lot of credits in high school?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I took AP classes, and this school by far accepted them. Right, a lot of schools out there would say, oh, we'll only take your calculus credits, or oh, we'll only take this. Florida Tech was like, yeah, towards the major, you get every one of the credits. So I actually came here with 47 credits.
Oh, wow, that's a huge...
They took every credit that I had, and I was like, okay.
Wow. That's incredible.
So even an exam, for example, that I had a 3 on, right, which is considered like an average score, they still took full credit for that and gave me like an elective. And I was like, oh, okay. So I came here with that, and then I really like to take classes. So I took a lot of credits each semester I was here. I started off with, my first semester was 19 credits because I wanted to finish all my gen eds. I was like, I don't want to take this lab. I don't want to get this out of the way.
Just clear them.
Yeah. So I did that semester and I went, wow, I really like taking classes. And so my second semester, I took 20 credits.
Wow.
And that was mostly math classes. And that's when I went, yeah, I like math. I want to do just this. Which I reckon in most cases would not go that way, right? Most people would go, oh, this sucks. I don't want to do math.
Yeah. Well, what do you really like about mathematics?
I like proofs. and there's really not many other fields where you do proof-based work. Sometimes in theoretical physics this is the case. Sometimes in any theoretical science this is the case, but in math it's entirely proof-based. We're going to start with some given assumptions, and we're going to use just the logic we know and the work with the objects we know to derive a new conclusion. Right? And I fell in love with that. I was like, this is what I have to do for the rest of my life. So, and it's very strange, right? Because a lot of physics coursework, for example, is similar in nature to mathematics. If you take an electricity and magnetism course here, right, it's very mathematical in nature. We have to derive most of these formulas we're working with.
Model them.
Yeah. And then when you get to the actual coursework or the homework sets, stuff like that, you encounter like real problems that you have to solve, right? Oh, we have a wire and we need to model this. In mathematics, we have this object, and I'm like, this doesn't correspond to any real problem. And of course you can use mathematics to model things, and of course you can use it as a tool for these type of problems, but I'm very interested in developing the mathematics itself. So when I see, for example, linear algebra courses, we're talking about matrices, we're talking about vectors. I'm like, how can we further understand the matrices and vectors? I want to know more about those guys.
And then the eigenvalues and eigenvectors.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas a lot of other courses are like, okay, what can we do with them? And so I sort of branched off from what can we do with them to what are they? I want to understand these objects more fully.
Yeah, I totally understand. So for reference, I'm a chemical engineering major. I'm running a master's right now.
Nice.
And so I took, pre-calculus, Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, and DiffEq here. And then in the later courses, it was a lot of applied differential equations. So, we were modeling the physics a lot, and we used, the Navier-Stokes equations a lot. And and in the master's program, one of the first classes I took was actually advanced mathematics and chemical engineering. And it's basically applying these differential equations to these different processes to basically model how all these different systems are behaving. And it just reminded me of a point that you always want a negative eigenvalue when you're dealing with these systems, because if you have a positive one, that indicates that you're going to get an exothermic reaction, which is going to continually get more violent and exothermic, and then you're going to have a whole system that explodes. So in my mathematics course, the teacher was like, yeah, we always want negative eigenvalues. It's very important. And so just applying it to what you said, it's very important to apply these mathematical principles in practice, because they have significant meaning in nature.
It's actually very interesting you bring that up about specifically negative eigenvalues, because in your field, right, negative eigenvalues corresponds to, say, the stability of a specific problem.
Yes.
In my work, I've learned a bit about stability of certain systems, and I learned that positive eigenvalues means this thing blows up, negative eigenvalues means that this thing is stable, and constant eigenvalues, you can, maybe if it's complex, you can get like something cyclical, oscillatory, whatever. I don't immediately link that to, let's say, a chemical system. I just go, this is the behavior of the object. And you're here going, this is how we use it in the real work.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that very like clear divide of you want to use this mathematics to, develop something new that people can use, and I want to develop the mathematics so that people who develop the things can use it. Right. People like you can use it.
Interesting. Yeah, because that was one thing I noticed in advanced transport phenomena, which is very mathematically involved. It's like some mathematics can be, stated in one area, and then you'll see the almost identical equation in another area.
Yeah.
And it's cool because if you can prove it in the one, then, by consequence, the other one is provable as well, and this is true. So if one is true, by similarity, the other is true. And I thought that was very fascinating.
And there's a lot of cases where like understanding that underlying object, right, having a really good understanding of what eigenvalues are doing can tell you a whole deal of something that you would originally think is unrelated, right? Where creating some process, how does this have to relate to eigenvalues? Well, it turns out there's well documented studies of this.
Yeah, for sure. So what is the scope of your work at the University of Pittsburgh?
Like I said, right now, I'm trying to get through the initial coursework because they have these things called preliminary exams, which I'm not quite fond of. But in order to prepare for those exams, you have to take a sequence in advanced calculus and linear algebra. That's maybe why it's so at the top of my mind. And you study that for a year. And so I'm in my second semester of doing that. And then you take these long 6-hour, 6-question exams. And where you have to like just prove a couple of statements from the ground up. And once you've done that, you then move on to the next section of the program. That's not to say that I've completely ignored research, because I'm, really interested in doing this. So on the side, over here at Florida Tech, I work with Dr. Yakov Brichenko-Kogan. We do something called, we create spaces of finite element differential forms, which are more or less objects that can represent certain like continuity properties of a system. So if you want to model a partial differential equation, we can't always find a perfect analytic solution. So we might want to approximate this numerically. And way back in the day, at NASA, for example, they would sit a bunch of smart guys down in a room and they would say, okay, you have to crunch through these PDEs and figure it out. And we don't have enough smart guys to go around to get all the things we need done.
Would they do it like element by element?
I'm not exactly sure what they did there, but they discretized, from what I know, they discretized the PDE itself, not the underlying like space that it sits on. And there are some cases where you would want to make the like triangulate the space and hold certain like properties. So if you're working in elasticity, for example, there's certain properties of the material that you need to maintain. If I just turn the space into a mesh, I might not be able to guarantee that on one triangle my PDE is continuous with another triangle, or some property might break some along that way. And so what we're trying to do is actually discretize the space itself and say, okay, there might be some weird warping, some weird geometry. What objects can we use to be able to do computations along here and still respect that underlying geometry, right? And that's a very fancy way of saying we're just trying to create families of finite elements that have specific properties. And so we're using these objects called differential forms to do this. And there's existing work out there for regular old differential forms, and that's been for quite some time, I think since the 70s. But we're trying to extend it to things called differential forms tensored with other differential forms. And the first work that I did, the first paper that is actually currently under review, that has to deal with two forms, tensor two forms, and that's what has specific applications in elasticity. It maintains, I couldn't tell you exactly what continuity property, but it has to do with the elasticity tensor. And from there, we're just trying to build up and generalize this to as much as possible. That's a really big thing in math, is we have some case, right? Some interesting case that we want to study. How can I generalize it, right? Can I do different dimensions of forms? Can I do, different objects? Where can I place these things, right? And really explore all avenues.
Yeah, and when is it applicable 100% of the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it might be 99.9. That's a very big difference than 100 in math, though.
Yeah, and there's a lot of bookkeeping in the sense that we need to keep all of our spaces neat and clean, because if we don't, something does break, right? And you don't want to publish a result where it falls apart under some special case, and then your reviewer will say, oh no, this actually breaks here, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of making sure everything's clean and orderly, and what we're doing is we're decomposing a space into different parts that we can address. We have to keep all of those sort of in line and bookkeep how we got to there, right? It might be intuitive for me to say, this space decomposes as these two smaller spaces.
But how?
Yeah, I can't just say that without the justification. I need to make some formal mapping from one to the other, which unfortunately takes up the bulk of the paper writing time.
Interesting. Ensuring the logic is sound. So just for some context, the way that I applied finite element software in my studies was it was a drug delivery class, so a biomedical engineering class. Yeah. And one application of this technology, which if anyone's unfamiliar with it, it's essentially like simulating nature, simulating some system by pretty much creating hundreds, thousands, millions, whatever, of these little triangles or these little elements that talk to each other, and pretty much you can map the interactions between them, and then you can put a bunch of them together to create a bigger system. So what we did was we actually mapped basically the flow of a drug, a medicine. So say you have like a patch and you put it on your skin, like you can actually model the rate at which that concentration is absorbed into your skin based on the properties of the drug in the skin and so on. And so that's an interesting application of it. I know it's used a lot in aerospace engineering, and fluid dynamics and stuff like that. So it's a very, very useful software. Absolutely. ComSol was the one I was familiar with. Yeah.
Our work doesn't directly deal with implementation. We're on the like math side of things. So for what you would have worked with, can think the people that came up with like finite element method. And then there's some computer scientist that goes, I'm going to write a package, a software for this, and let everyone else use it.
I see.
So we're hoping that people may find this useful and create similar packages, right? There are people who are experts in making packages, and they've already implemented regular differential forms. Maybe they can implement ours as well.
Interesting. Yeah, that's one thing that's neat about engineering. It's that there's just so many. It's so interdisciplinary because, like in chemical engineering, for example, it's like you need the mathematics to model all these equations, and then you need the chemists to come up with formulation, and then you need like mechanical engineers to actually put all the things together, and you need a chemical engineer to model it and to make sure it all works properly and set the conditions and so on. And so it's very fascinating how the different disciplines work together to accomplish a goal.
Yeah, I would definitely just highlight that in general, because I'm talking about whatever work I might be up to in mathematics, but really the larger picture is why would I do any of it to begin with is because it could be useful to someone in a different field, right? A completely different field across the world. And I think this is really where like the intersection of mathematics and other sciences starts to shine, because without that like interdisciplinary collaboration, there would be no drive for further stuff. There would be no grants, right? We need the people to do, right? For example, work in you mentioned like biomedical applications, right? Without that, there would be nobody would want to fund mathematics research, right? I have to phrase the abstract of my paper. Where could this be useful? Why does someone want to care about this? And so the goal really is very interdisciplinary.
Wow, interesting. And what have your impressions of the master's level math classes been?
As far as here or at Pittsburgh?
At Pittsburgh.
At Pittsburgh, there's less of a like line between where someone's doing their master's and where someone's doing their PhD.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah. So, for example, on the process to get my PhD, I'll satisfy the requirements to get the master's, and they're like, okay, yeah, you've passed these exams, you've done enough courses, and here you go. I do know a couple master's students there. They're pretty much doing the same thing, taking courses, preparing for exams. They're taking the same exact courses, except their goal there is to either write a capstone thesis or pass a master's comprehensive exam. Right? They're not there for the 5 years to do a whole dissertation. They're trying to most of the time do a thesis and move probably to industry applications. And so a lot of them focus more on, as far as coursework goes, a lot of them focus on the applied math courses. So there's some numerical mathematics, of course the linear algebra, and then some computational PDE courses I know some folks are taking. And so usually they're not trying to do like the pure math, right? Because most industry aren't going, okay, we need someone who can talk about abstract surfaces. No, we need someone who can, model really complex systems. But their coursework does intersect significantly with mine. My overall impression is that, we're all doing the same courses. I actually view them very, very highly for coming to the University of Pittsburgh and taking these mathematics courses to then go probably make more money than I ever will. Their contributions to the industry are, very significant.
Yeah, cool. And I got to commend you for taking up a mathematics, academic journey, because that's one of those ones where at every moment in time you're as advanced as you've ever been in mathematics, and especially mathematics. It's all you guys are constantly on the forefront of of logic, really, and it's at any point I feel like it's harder than ever before to make progress. So I just want to point that out.
It actually feels I can speak to that a bit. It feels really weird. Because I've even had in some of my courses, the professor will turn and say, we're doing a functional analysis lecture. A lot of this has already been discovered. If you want to work in this area, you're going to be bounding some equation. You are not going to be making a breakthrough. I'm like, well, that's very disheartening, right? And it's not that it's not possible to make those kind of breakthroughs still. It's just that there are so many people contributing to this area, and it's very rich, like with like well-explored problems. Right, there are other areas of mathematics, usually the algebraic areas, that are still, I'm sure there will be some brilliant breakthroughs in the next coming years. But a lot of the analysts are just trying to like just bound certain equations and get a better estimate so that people can use this.
I see. So do you want to stick with the generalization path, or is there a certain application that you have your eyes on?
So I'm very mixed bag, I would say. My primary interest is working with just geometry in general. I saw some videos when I was younger about differential geometry. I went, wow, this is cool. And now that I'm at a school that can, really help me realize, knowledge in this subject, I'm going, wow, this is really, really cool, right? I'm extremely eager to study this. And so next year I'll be focusing mostly on developing like theoretical geometry abilities with the intent to like keep generalizing work and build off of other mathematicians, right? That being said, I'm still very interested in applied math, right? Otherwise I probably wouldn't be trying to collaborate so strongly with those here. My interests are kind of broad as far as applied math goes. I've recently geared myself up a bit to learn about like certain geographical systems. So how people do urban planning, stuff like that. There's a lot of mathematical modeling that goes into that. Epidemiology, network theory in general, right? How population dynamics work, how computer networks work. Yeah, how weather. You could even go beyond that. There's plenty of network theory as far as like interstellar bodies are concerned, astronomy.
A lot of gravity, I imagine.
Yeah, there's really mathematical models everywhere in every field, and it's not just STEM fields either. Right? I mentioned that I'm interested in like epidemiology. I'm also interested in like public health. I guess the correct term would be industrial hygiene. There's really a lot of places where math can slot in, and that's not to say that I'm going to become a domain expert in any one of them, but I do see myself in the coming years making contributions to those areas, hoping to collaborate with some really talented students. Hey, do you have a project that could benefit from some really heavy math? Let me hop in on that.
Yeah, that's great, and talent tends to attract talent, so I'm sure you'll be able to. And so you mentioned that you help out students quite a bit, and you work with the faculty a lot, and
yeah.
So I'm just curious, like outside of your mathematics studies, what are you involved in?
As far as the school or like personal life?
As far as the school first.
As far beyond my actual studies, I have the obligation. Obligation's a strong word, but as part of my job duties, I have to teach undergraduates. So I lead, at least last semester, I led 3 recitations of Calculus 1. By far my favorite part of the program. I love working with the undergrads and helping them, understand and digest the content. I'm hoping this summer, I'm still waiting for them to release placements, but I'm hoping this summer that I can get an instructor position and actually run a class myself. Because the ultimate goal for me is to become a professor. And so I'm trying to get as much experience with that as possible. Yeah.
That's great. So just for further context, I taught chemistry here. I taught general chemistry 1, and I taught over 600 students. In fact, the lady who I was speaking with, she was one of my students. And it's very rewarding, just especially for undergraduates, because they're getting into a stage of their life where it's getting a little bit more serious, and they're learning more advanced courses, and they're really having to implement these problem-solving skills, and I feel like it's just a very important time to help people learn and grow and develop, and yeah, I got a lot of fulfillment out of my time teaching here, and I think that it's an honorable line of work.
I initially was a bit on the fence. I was like, I'm going to go to grad school. There's some teaching involved. I'm interested in it. We'll see what happens. And within the first couple weeks there, I went from, oh, I'm so nervous, the class might not like me, to this is what I want to do. This is the job I want to do. And so I know even if I don't end up becoming a professor, I know fundamentally I'll be a teacher. So I'm interested in working with anyone mathematically. I could see myself, if I'm older, maybe I'd want to become a high school teacher. Maybe not right now, because I don't think they would take me too seriously, but definitely I wouldn't limit myself to just being a college teacher. I just love teaching.
That's awesome. Yeah, and there's definitely demand for good teaching, and that can really resonate with students, because it's, unfortunately, it can be hard to find like a very passionate, enthusiastic, and encouraging teacher these days. And so if you can be that for somebody, I think that's a very important role in somebody's life. Yeah, and it seems like you'll have a little bit of freedom, because you'll probably have the structure of the income of being a professor, and then you'll also have the opportunity to do research, I suppose, or finding more applications of mathematics, even potentially with the undergraduates that you teach.
Yeah.
Is that part of your plan, or?
Yeah, absolutely. You may notice a lot of professors here have a couple undergrads they work with and a couple grad students they work with.
Oh, yeah.
The goal eventually is to be able to raise PhD students of my own and have them do their dissertations. But I try to stay involved pretty much across the board. If it means once I have hopefully a job as a professor, I still want to do community outreach. Right? I still want to go give talks at local places and connect with that community, because I think that's something I wouldn't say necessarily lacking, but we can always use more of it.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's always a place for good educators. So it seems like you're on a good path to get there. Do you want to stay at the University of Pittsburgh, or would you travel?
As far as my PhD goes, I'm definitely going to complete it at the University of Pittsburgh. No intent to transfer or anything like that. But afterwards, I would like to do postdoctorate studies. I don't think it makes sense in this day and age where it's so competitive to immediately try to jump into professor roles. I think a lot of universities like to see people doing a postdoc or two first. So I have a couple of schools in mind, and they're mostly driven by personal interest of the cities and the schools there. But I would be thrilled to go somewhere like University of Minnesota, University of Washington, Toronto, very, very northern cities, if you might notice. But I'm hoping to go somewhere like that for a postdoc. Especially, it's often advised to bounce around between levels. So undergrad, master's, PhD, postdoc, bounce around, because you get so many new connections and the chance to work with completely different faculty.
And you get so much more perspective, and worldliness, I feel like.
Absolutely.
And plus you get the benefit of being an alumni of several universities, which is, has its benefits.
That's very true. And I think there's something to be said of the more universities you can spend time at, you will get like a unique life experience at each of them. Right? Especially, in my case, I want to go to a lot of big cities. It is seldom the case that one city is identical to the other. There's different people, there's different culture, and I really think it's worth experiencing, especially in your 20s and your 30s. Before I'm going, I need to settle down and choose a place to live permanently. I think it's great for me to get out there and really explore. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a fun adventure, It's
absolutely.
It just, I totally agree with you. Florida Tech is kind of humble beginnings in a way. It's like small college, like it's easy to get resources, it's easy to get help, and then I feel like it really sets you up well for future endeavors. And so I transferred to the University of Florida after this, and that's a very well-known public university.
It's school as well.
Yeah, it's so it's just completely different from Florida Tech, like you're saying. It's a completely different experience. Like it's more of like a small city, whereas like Melbourne is kind of like a big town, so it's just a different level, and they have like D1 sports, and there's just more opportunities for different sorts of jobs. Like right now, I'm working as a valet driver, and which is pretty cool. And I've gotten a lot of great experiences just from having the courage to study somewhere else and to experience life in a different place. And I encourage people to take the leap of faith and to live somewhere new, because it's very educational.
If you don't mind me asking you a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How was that transition for you from small college here to University of Florida, right? Because we've both sort of had that coming from Florida Tech, going to a place that's significantly larger.
Well, that's a great question, Lily, and thank you for asking it. And it was a bit unique in my sense, because I have some family that lives there. My sisters live there, and 2 brothers-in-law, and 3 nephews and a niece. So
this is more than some family. It's quite a bit.
Yeah. So they kind of provided a soft landing. And on the other hand, I was coming from Alaska because.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah. I was a deckhand up in Alaska over the summer, so I was going from the Pacific Ocean to the back to Florida into the swamp, and so it was quite the transition. I mean, I was literally spending like 9 hours a day out on the ocean, ripping fish out and like providing great vacations to our clients and maintaining an island lodge, and it was so. And I was pretty well known in that community too, and I made some good friends there, and so it was hard because I felt very much alone. I didn't have the support network that I did at Florida Tech, because I established a respectable reputation here, and I knew people to reach out to, and of course my best friends, and I had to say goodbye to them after Alaska, and that was very hard. And honestly, I found the challenges to be very easy at UF in the master's program. I found myself having a lot of free time. I guess that's kind of part of the process too, because in a master's program, it's kind of implied that you gotta, have a job and provide for yourself, and so luckily I was able to find 2 jobs, well I guess 3 jobs that semester, and I was able to secure a contract as an outside sales representative. So.
Really nice.
Blessing in disguise sort of thing. So I found it hard at first. There was a lot of growing pains, and now that I'm a little more settled and I have a stable job and I have I have my acquaintances and I have my family, and so now that I've spent some time there, I find it a lot more supportive in a lot of ways, and I find it a good place to grow. So I'd say it was a good decision to move there.
I actually have a pretty similar experience. Well, I haven't been to Alaska yet, but I've had a pretty similar experience. I had said to myself a lot, like, I'm super prepared to move to a big city. And even then, Pittsburgh is not the biggest city in the world, right? It's a moderate-sized city. But I had told myself that I was very prepared for this. And I moved, and it was great the first couple of weeks. And then I went, I'm completely alone here. I didn't have anybody. The nearest family I have to there is in New Jersey. And that's more than a 6-hour drive away, and I can't drive. So there was no chance I was even going to see anyone I knew. And so I can really, speak to that isolation. It's bad initially, but it was worth it in my case. And you sort of ended with that. Like, you're happy with where you ended up moving. I'm really happy with where I ended up moving. Getting past that initial feeling of isolation has allowed me to become more of like myself. There's a lot of living, especially when I was living at home with my family, living for, doing things for the sake of others, right? I'm going to go to the store with my mom because she asked me to go there, right? When I'm on my own, it's very isolating, but there's something, very liberating about it as well, right? I'm living somewhere new. There's plenty of new experiences, and now that I have some of that free time awarded by, my job, there's some hours I have at the end of the day, I get to go, explore a new city and meet new people. And once I fell into the routine of going to new places, walking around my city, I love walking, it became much, much better. right? Now I would say I'm more than settled in. I'm a resident of Pittsburgh now, right?
Yeah. What's the team? Steelers?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, go Steelers. So,
maybe less on the sports side, but
yeah, me too. Just saying, go Gators, so to speak. Yeah, and I can relate to what you're saying. It's like, I talked about this on my last episode with Shakir, and I feel like if you have, a lot of times people have these support networks, and then they can kind of lean on these people around them a lot, and sometimes you might not realize how much you're leaning on them until they're not there, and then they're not there, and then
that's a really good way of putting it, actually.
Yeah, and then you kind of realize how much you were depending on them for emotional support or whatever else it was, and I feel like living on your own and establishing your independence, then you become like you have a more stable foundation in a way, because then if people leave, it's like, okay, well, I'm independent anyways, so it's not going to rock me as much as it would before.
You definitely get a much stronger footing as yourself, right? When people come and go, it's not as immediately damaging to your daily routine. For example, I had days during my first semester where my routine would get all messed up and my apartment would get messy. But nowadays, if there's something really stressful going on, I approach it more with confidence, and I don't, my apartment doesn't get all messy, right?
Absolutely. So how's the department been at University of Pittsburgh?
It's very interesting. I love the professors there. Absolutely love the professors there. I think overall the departmental culture around mathematics is super strong. Coming here from Florida Tech, where there's only a handful of math majors, to a school where there's 40 plus PhD students, all working towards similar goals, it really does feel unifying in that sense. However, I will say there's a very strong disconnect that I have with the other students. And I actually talked to a couple of professors about this. Is this normal? What is this? What's going on, right? I'm used to making friends with everyone I talk to here. And I had a professor, Dr. Highwash, as it turns out, is the one I want to work with. He said to me, these people are more or less colleagues. You're not going to go and hang out with them on a playground. It's not elementary school. You're all trying to develop your career and become professionals, right? You help each other, you boost each other where you can. It's not a destructive environment, but most often you're not first and foremost friends, you're first and foremost colleagues. And that really hit me hard when he first said that. And of course I'm paraphrasing, he didn't say precisely that, but
it's true.
It really hit me hard because I had always been under the assumption that I can just sit down and chit chat with whoever and it's going to be great. But there's quite a few people who, are very friendly but don't want to go and hang out and go get a coffee sometime, or don't want to go downtown and walk together. They would much rather spend time with their family that they've developed. And of course I understand that, but it was a very big shock, a culture shock coming from undergrad to grad school. Have you, as far as grad school goes, have you sort of experienced anything similar where people feel kind of like colleagues, very, very professional, almost for no reason sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely. The people, kind of by nature, the people who sign up for that program are more serious. Yeah. They've chosen to be there and they're paying to be there, and they are there because they want to advance themselves in their career, and they're taking it, not all the time, but of course, what I've noticed, the ones who are in the master's program tend to take it a lot more seriously than the people in the undergraduate program. Yeah. And so I think that's part of it. Another part of it is that we're just more grown up. A lot of the students there are a little bit older, and so they're more focused on their life goals. Yeah. And I think they're a lot more serious about making money and establishing their independence, and they're a lot more serious about that. They're probably more focused on their goals. That was certainly the case for me.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting because to get through undergrad, to get where I'm at, there was a certain seriousness that I had to have. Mm-hmm. But I do see pretty much everyone in grad school has, this level of seriousness to them. And it does make sense, right? The student who goes out and parties every single day and doesn't get any coursework done probably will not want to enroll in grad school.
Yeah.
Because what is the point of paying that money?
Yeah, and it's kind of refreshing. It's nice to see. It's nice to be around hustlers, because one thing that really frustrated me in the undergraduate program was that people weren't taking it as seriously as I was, and so it's nice to be around people who really are dedicated to their work now.
I would agree. There's a lot of people know, what it is they're trying to reach for. I've met a lot of people in undergrad. Not that it's bad to be figuring out your path, but a lot of people, myself included at the time, would just go, I don't know. I'm just doing whatever. I'm just studying something, or my parents want me to do this. I heard that a lot. But in grad school, exclusively, as I chose to come here, I'm doing this. And a lot of people will lay out, what they plan to do. I plan to finish this up here, work with this person, and go off and hopefully work at this company. I'm like, you already have the company in mind and everything. It's a very driven environment, and it's a lot different than undergrad.
Yeah, absolutely. And some people even leave and then come back.
Yeah.
There's some people who are like in their later 20s and they're doing very well. And yeah, with that being said, though, I've made some good acquaintances there.
Yeah.
There's a few people that are very high echelon in the academic world that I get along very well with, and so I'm very realistic about the boundaries, like you mentioned, and I think they are too, and we seem to have a mutual understanding. I think that we have an understanding where we know this is impermanent. We know that we can help each other out. We know that maybe I provide some help to you that may be valuable, and you provide some help to me that's very valuable, and I think we can mutually work together without getting too close, because we have a mutual understanding of our situation. And I kind of like that. It's very realistic. I think that's more close to what it's like in the real world too.
It's very, very like professional of an interaction, right? Like, here's how we can help each other out. We're going to work together for the time being, but we all have our life paths at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah, and everybody seems to be on the same page in that front.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's funny to put it that way, because a lot of the connections I've made since coming to grad school, I might feel this level of impermanence, and these are just my colleagues. But honestly, if I didn't have these connections, it would feel completely different, right? If I came back here and permanently moved back to Melbourne, I'd be, where are my coworkers? Where are the people I've been interacting with, right? So while it can sometimes feel like you're not fully connected, there is some level professionally where they stay really ingrained, right? My work is inherently tied to the work of the guy sitting next to me, because we talk together all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it is comforting to have that support network, and have someone to reach out to, like, hey, what'd you get on question 2?
Yeah.
And we all, need help on homework sometimes, and it's good to be able to help each other out with that. So are you doing any work with undergraduates at Pittsburgh right now?
This semester, I'm not doing any teaching. I have no obligation. That sounds really bad, but I guess to put it in a better way, I'm on a fellowship this semester, so I don't have that requirement. I wish I could keep teaching. It's honestly enjoyable. And then as far as working individually, I have not started doing that yet, just because I want to get through my preliminary exams first before anything, because I've seen some people that maybe haven't gone through them, and that ends up not being as great for later parts of the program. So I do hope afterwards, they have this program there. It's like a mentorship program where grad students will take like 1 or 2 undergrads, and they'll choose like a textbook and they'll work through it. So I have a couple of colleagues who have their own sort of undergraduate student that they've been working with for pretty much a year now, and raising them as far as research is concerned. I don't know if any of them have gotten to like the point of publication, but I do know that they've almost like an independent study, where the student will be guided, here's the textbook we want to use. We're going to go through these chapters this week and come and discuss. I'm very excited to get into that. Like I said, just pushing it off until I get through my first milestone.
I see. Yeah. Something you may be interested in is working with the Alumni Association here at Florida Tech and maybe getting in touch with some people who are coming up. One thing that really helped me was reaching out to alumni from here, and I actually found a guy who went through and got a PhD at UF in chemical engineering, so we got, went along similar paths, and he's been very helpful. Mr. Brian Montez, shout out. He owns a company called Micropure Genomics, I believe, and he's doing very well, and he's been a very good mentor to me. So I was even thinking of going back and doing that myself and just mentioning, like, hey, I'm happy to help out anyone who has questions, just to kind of help out anyone however I can. I think it's a good practice.
It's pretty funny that you mentioned that, and we had talked about this briefly before this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I reached out to the people who manage like alumni association here. I had initially thought, maybe it'd be interesting to be on the alumni board of directors, but these people are very professional, many years of work experience. However, they have some other smaller programs for recent alumni, and I reached out, and it seems like hopefully I'll be able to get some interaction there. She wants me to, every time I come back here, let her know so that maybe I can get like an opportunity running a course or a seminar.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was, and no lie, it was like 30 minutes before this started that I had this meeting. And it was very spontaneous. It was, can I come to the alumni center? And she's like, yeah. And she showed me around, talked about what I could do, what we might be able to develop with this kind of program. And then I was like, all right, I gotta go. I gotta come here.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And they really enjoy what they do over there. They have a good staff.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Especially Miss Hatzel, Miss Madison.
That's who I talked to.
Yeah, I was wondering if that's who it was. Yeah, she's sweet. She's great.
Yeah.
She's a very, very nice person. So you mentioned that you're here for an honors seminar.
Yeah.
So can you please explain the scope of your presentation?
So as far as the honors seminar is concerned, that's a class that students who are getting an honors degree, that are in the honors college, I should say, have to take in order to get that distinction. And it really is like an intersection between STEM and humanities, and really whatever goes will help you with your career, with your future in STEM. A lot of different speakers come in, and I had emailed the professor and asked, can I come in? Can I come in to speak? Because I remember taking it. I remember there were speakers. Mm-hmm. She said, yeah. And she wants me to talk about pretty much what we've been talking about, what my experience has been like, but focus maybe a bit more on actually like the nitty gritty of how like grad school feels. Because a lot of these students in that class intend on going to some form of grad school, and they really want to hear like, what is life like? How does my apartment budget break down, for example, right? And so I'm trying to come to them with something that's going to be useful, right? I want to give my experience, and for them to go, okay, I still want to go to grad school, but now I know what I should be doing during the application process, or now I know how I should handle funding opportunities.
And what it really entails.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what you're signing up for.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you should mention that. A few weeks ago I was here, and I started a club here, the investment club.
Nice.
And I came here with my career coach, Michael DeLeo. Well, one of my career coaches, I have two. Renee Flutie is my other one. She's extremely helpful. And pretty much we presented to the undergraduates about career coaching and how it helps. And in fact, I gave a speech about my decision to start the master's program and what my experience has been there. And
yeah.
So
that's pretty similar.
Yeah.
In scope to yeah.
Yeah, it's just funny that. Yeah, it seems like we're kind of giving a similar speech at a similar time. So
yeah.
I thought that was an interesting observation. So what motivates you to do this and to go back and help out these people?
I guess I have two motivations. The first motivation is I was already coming here. My mom lives in the area, and actually pretty much all my family lives in the Melbourne area. And so every time I come here, I feel like very strongly motivated. Well, I'm right next to campus. I should do something. I'm an alumni. I should come give a presentation, talk, work with professors. I have a collaborator here. I should come meet him at his office in person. But then beyond that, I loved my experience here. I had it was the best time of my life after high school and middle school and all that. I didn't particularly enjoy my middle school and high school years. So when I came here, it was very transformative, right? I became more of who I am today. Love the experience, love the classes, the people. And so when I have the opportunity to come fly back here, or drive, but that would be grueling, but come fly here, I absolutely want to give back as much as possible to the students, because I know I would have loved, when I was here, for a bunch of people to come and give talks, or in the math department, have someone say, hey, I graduated from here, I'm in a PhD program, here's what I'm up to. Because I didn't see as much of that when I was an undergrad here. It's a lot of professors giving talks. So I want to reach out to as many people as possible and say hey, here's where I've made it to.
Yeah, that's great. And I really understand that motivation. I can empathize with it quite a lot, because there's something to be said for being close to the students that you're talking to in experience and in age, because I feel like you can resonate a lot more with them. You're more in touch with kind of how they're thinking, because you went through it more recently. And not to discredit the professors at all, just sometimes if you've been out of the, if you're pretty far removed by 10, 20, 30 years, then sometimes it's hard to get in touch with what's really the situation and what people need to consider. So I think that's great. That's a very similar reason that I do it. I mean, my dad, he lives in town, and my grandma, she's here too, and she's 95, and so I like to visit her. And in fact, I might see her for dinner after this. And yeah, it's just really nice to be able to give back to the people who are coming up and to provide those opportunities, because that's a similar reason I started the club, was because I didn't see anybody giving practical advice, and I didn't see anybody who was providing significant education on finances and good habits and responsibilities and behaviors and ways of life that will generate success. And so I figured I would. Well, if I want to see it, I got to do it myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't see it being done, then you can do it. And so that was a big reason that I did it. And so yeah, I just really respect your decision to come back and help out the generations who are coming up, because I think it's very important work. And yeah, I really respect it.
Oh, likewise. You mentioned this sort of level of disconnect. As someone's a professor for many years, they may not be directly in tune with how the undergrads, are feeling. Mm-hmm. I have a sort of a name for this. I call it professor syndrome, mm-hmm. and it's not necessarily just in regards to how they feel about the coursework, but it even comes down to the actual work itself. Oftentimes in a calculus course, for example, and I've had this happen to me too. A professor might say, okay, we'll apply this integral here, and then it evaluates to this. And the students go, well, how did it evaluate to that? Mm. And there's this level of someone's been working in the field for so long and worked with this so much that it's become completely second nature to them, right? To me, I look at that integral and I say, well, this is just the answer to it. What about it? Just as someone might say, what's 5 plus 5? I go 10. Explain it. What do you mean? You just add it. Mm. And it's not coming from an area of I'm trying to put down a student. It's just it has not processed in my mind that there is an underlying explanation, right? Just like with 5 plus 5, you would have to show someone the physical intuition using blocks and counting before they get that number theory. Hmm. And I call this professor syndrome because it really happens to the best of us, not just professors, but I find this is a really common pitfall to get into while teaching, is to want to skip certain steps that really end up being foundational. And I think a strong emphasis on those foundational steps is what makes students really good in a course. So when I recently did recitations for Calculus 1, pretty much my entire recitations were, okay, you're seeing something from the professor, how are we getting from here to there? What steps are we doing? Why are we doing it? What is the intuition behind this? Because once the student has that, I found they're much more geared for succeeding on the, procedural task, right? There's a strong difference between memorizing how to do an integration problem, doing the method, and knowing why I do the next step. If you know why you do the next step, I don't even need to tell you the procedure half the time. You'll just know what step to do. right?
Absolutely. And it kind of reminds me of when I taught Taekwondo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, when I was younger, I earned a black belt in Taekwondo, and I chose to teach the tiny tigers, who are like the young ones, and there's you very much have to break it down. You have to be like, raise your leg and then pull your toes back and then kick out and then chamber it back and throw it down, and then it takes them a few tries and then they finally get it and then they're really proud of themselves. But same thing to what you said. It's like after you've earned a black belt, you're like, it's just a front kick. Like it's pretty simple. But when you're trying to teach it to a child, it's like, oh, there's a lot that goes into it that is important to consider and to explain. And I agree with what you're saying. I think sometimes professors, they have a hard time explaining the why or getting really into the details of like the process, and I think that's really what needs to be explained for students to understand it and to be able to perform it well.
Yeah.
And it also reminds me when I was before I started teaching, the position I was in was a supplemental instruction position, and Professor Smeltz, she's like one of my favorite teachers ever. She told me that typically the role was not embodied. It was taken on by a master's or a PhD student, and I was a sophomore at the time. Like I was entering my sophomore year, so I was far younger than the people who preceded me, and it was interesting though. I think that gave me an advantage because as someone who just literally went through the course and retook all the notes for the course to prepare, I felt a lot more in touch with the material and what the expectations were, and I think I was able to explain it a lot better because I had just gone through it.
You had the why right in front of you, right in your notes.
Exactly.
I think there's actually something to be said about the connection you made with Taekwondo, because a lot of the time explaining that why is more complicated than explaining the process itself, right? I can tell someone in Taekwondo, right, this is just do a front kick, whatever. Mm-hmm. But to actually go through the mechanics of where the leg moves, right? You can think of it as a 3D model of a person. Where are we moving each individual joint?
Yeah.
And you have to replicate this.
Yeah. Where's the force?
Yeah. How are we directing this? Where is it coming from? To understand all of that requires a much stronger knowledge of the human body, its mechanics. Mm-hmm. Likewise in mathematics, right? Or chemistry or biology or anything. To explain that why of we're getting some sort of result or we're doing some sort of process, why is this step being taken, requires a much higher understanding of the actual mechanics behind it, right? Or the theory behind it, right? There's a lot of formulas, right? Anyone can go and say, I'm going to plug into this formula, but to actually get to that point, you have to understand the whole derivation of it and why it comes about and the physical processes and the math behind those processes.
Absolutely, yeah. And before you do it the quick way, it's good to learn the slow way. For example, in calculus, that's why we learn the fundamental theorem of calculus before we learn all of our neat little integral tricks.
Yeah.
Because this is where the definition comes from, and this is how we come to the shortcuts that we develop.
And I had a lot of students, they would say to me, especially when we learned derivatives, well, if we had all these rules to learn them and we can just apply these rules, why did we have to learn the limit definition, right? And I said, because that's what the derivative actually is. These rules are just a consequence of that guy, right? You can't just start applying rules and sure, maybe you can get some result from this, but you're not actually using the correct object until you understand what the object is, right? You have to learn this first. And they would go, okay, well, that makes sense, but it still seems unnecessary. And then that's when I would say, well, here's the physical intuition. Here's why we're getting this as a derivative, right? That's where that unit comes in, for people who are versed in calculus, how are we finding the instantaneous slope, right? That's what matters more than, derivative of x squared is 2x.
Yeah.
That matters so much, that trick matters so much less than the actual mechanics of the process.
Absolutely, yeah. And then later on you build that into physics too. It's just like, okay, here's this velocity, and then here's the acceleration, and then here's the jerk, and it's like, well, what's the difference? It's like, well, it's the order of the differential, right, with respect to time.
Yeah.
And So yeah, then you can better understand the definitions. Then you can better understand what the process is.
And there's a lot of people that will go, okay, you have position, you have velocity. Okay, we can solve a problem with it. Why does that matter? And the big thing to take away is that they are interconnected. We're using calculus for this because it's all interconnected, because we have our mathematical systems for this.
Yeah.
Right? And this is really hard to convey. Like, extraordinarily hard to convey, more than most other things in the course, that like, we need this because it drives the entire course. Just because you can do the process doesn't like mean that you can universally apply this. And it reminds me of how people say, once you can teach it to someone else, you know it really well, right? When you're doing studying tips, try teaching it to your mom, for example. I think there really is something to be said. Like, if you're able to teach it, then you have to have that understanding. You can't teach it by just saying, here's the rule, memorize it. My mom would say, I don't want to do that. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very powerful statement. A lot of times I found I learned more as the teacher than I did as the student.
Absolutely. I'm the best at calculus I've ever been.
Yeah. And there's a real skill in being able to compress this information into a manner that's understandable. Because people who are very, some people who have like 4.0 GPAs and they're very smart and accomplished, it's like they have a very high understanding of these things, and sometimes they have a hard time translating it to somebody who doesn't have as much expertise, And so it's a very different skill set, like having the knowledge base is one, and then being able to explain it is another thing. And I think if you're able to do both of those things, then you can be very successful as an educator.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That seemed to be the case in my chemistry experience, at least. And I hope it's going to be my experience in wastewater treatment, too, because these are essentially big chemical engineering systems, and I think I have the expertise to be able to understand it, and I think I also have the teaching capabilities to get other people to understand what I'm saying, and hopefully that will play well into sales, because then I can teach them how to optimize their engineering systems. But I better not get carried away with that. It's just really nice to be able to explain these things to people, because then it's just a very valuable skill, and it's very rewarding, and I think people are delighted when they really learn something new in an easy way.
Yeah.
It's nice to see them to learn and develop the skills themselves too. Yeah. So I don't really know where to go from here. So did you grow up in Florida?
I didn't, actually. I grew up in New Jersey.
Jersey.
So that's why I have some family in New Jersey. It's because
I see.
I actually spent the first 17 years of my life there.
Oh, in Jersey, huh?
Yeah.
Like in the city, or?
Not in the city, but very close to it. It's about 30 minutes away from New York City. Coincidentally, I only went there a couple of times, like in my entire life. But, I was young. Most parents will say, no, don't go into the city, you're a kid. And so I didn't. But nowadays, I'm like, I'd love to go back to New York City. But yeah, I grew up in North Jersey. It's a county called Bergen County.
What was that like?
It was very interesting, because my experience up there, I tended to isolate myself a lot when I was young. And of course, this is not a therapy session by any means, but through middle school and high school, I didn't really want to interact with anything in my community. I was like, I'm just going to do school, and I'm going to go home, and I'm going to play games. And I think that was a sentiment shared by a lot of students in that region, because it's just jam-packed suburbia. It's houses, houses, houses for who knows how many square miles, and then if you go across the water, there's skyscrapers, and of course that's understating the region. There's a lot of things to do there because there's a lot of people there, but for someone, when I was younger, I was not going, are there flyers up? Are there any events I can go to? There are many people who did do that and saw, super cool concerts and events. But if you hadn't caught on to that, it was very easy to get trapped in, I'm just at home with my family and everyone else is at home, and then I'll go to school the next day. So I would say growing up there, it's a nice place to grow up, but maybe I could have done it a bit better. Yeah.
I can kind of empathize with that. I grew up in Massachusetts, and there was a whole lot of nothing going on. I grew up in a very small town, and I mean, I lived across the street from a middle school, and it was just me and my mom and 2 cats. The cats didn't say much, and it was very quiet. And it was very lonely, and I feel like when you go through a childhood that's very isolative, it builds a level of introspection that I feel like a lot of people might not have, and I think it makes you kind of a deeper thinker because you just have so much time alone to think. And
I think that's definitely true about when I was younger. I spent a lot of time just focusing on whatever I was doing. So if I had any amount of coursework to do, well, I don't got much else to do. I might as well focus on it. How could I have done this better? How could I have been better at this? And there's, this level of obsession over my own work that probably stems from this. But that's not to say that it was all bad there. Like I said, I would be willing to return to the area. But once I was ready to graduate from high school, my mom was like, I want to move south. And I was like, where is south? And
it's pretty far south.
And she was like, oh, maybe South Carolina, North Carolina. And we did a summer visit. This was in my freshman or sophomore year of high school, actually. We did a summer visit to here, Melbourne, Florida. Mm-hmm. And I toured this campus. And she said, you should go to college here. Mm-hmm. All right, well, come time to graduate high school, I should go to college there. And she just wanted to move, and we packed up and we left. It was a very strange experience because I never moved when I was young. I know a lot of people that bounced around the country. I lived in the same house from, when I was born till when I was 17 and some months.
With just your mom?
With my mom and my sister.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Huh. Did your sister move here too?
Yeah, she's also here. And so we just packed up everything, which there was a lot of things to pack up. You can fit a lot in a house over decades of having one. Packed everything up, and my sister stayed at the house for like a week to make sure, because we actually have some pets. We have some dogs, to make sure that they're okay. My mom and I rented a big box truck and drove all the way down to Florida.
Wow.
To our new house.
In Melbourne?
Yeah, in Melbourne.
Nice. And what year was that?
That was 2023. That was the same year that I started my undergrad here.
Wow.
So we moved here August 9th, I believe. Well, 8th into the 9th. It's a long drive. And my classes started the 21st.
Gotcha.
So we were like, we're moving. And oh my goodness, the house that we got here had nothing. Nothing. We were renovating it. So there was no kitchen. There was no beds.
Nothing? Just bare house?
Nothing. There used to be a kitchen, but we had it taken out because it was really old and not really that functional. But my first couple of days there, I remember sitting on the floor. It's actually quite a funny story. I remember sitting there on the floor with a bowl of instant mac and cheese and going, wow, what the heck did we just do? Because there was no kitchen. There was a microwave, and I was sitting there on the humid floor going, what did we do? And it turned out to be amazing. Have you ever had any experience with uprooting like this?
Oh yes, many times. Yeah. It's there's always that moment of realization where you're like, well, this is home now. We better get used to it. Yeah. I moved around. I lived in Washington D.C. for a summer. Nice. I spent 2 summers in Alaska. I moved from my dad's house to campus. I moved to the University of Florida, so I moved around.
Quite
a bit.
A couple of good times.
Yeah, and it's surprising how quickly you get accustomed to a new house. You're just kind of like, oh, okay, well, here's home.
There's something maybe embarrassing about it when I'm calling my mom. This is specifically about my experience going to Pittsburgh, and it goes from my apartment to home. Like when I'm on the phone with her, there were many times for the first few weeks where I'd go, I'm going to go back to my apartment. I'll go back to my apartment. Mm-hmm. And then it started becoming, I'm going to go home. And she's like, oh, your home's there. I'm like, yeah. And it's so weird, especially that being my first time moving out of the house. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people move out for undergrad, but my mom came with. But it hits really hard to be like, not only is this my new home, my brain has started calling it home too. I call that my mom's house now.
Yeah, it's quite the transition. And
Yeah.
home is it's always been kind of a funny word for me.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are like, oh, home is where the heart is, or home is, they have some sort of emotional association with home, whatever that is. Whereas me, I've had to move around so much, and I've gone through so many transitions in my life that I just home is where I retreat. Like,
I feel very, very similarly. I most often associate it with just like, that's where my bed is for the time being.
Where I lay my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, my definition is kind of, that's pretty much it. I guess home is where I am, which is kind of cool.
It's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah. It helps me not get too attached. And it's kind of exciting, though, because I'd like to make my own home one day and have a nice lady and, maybe a dog and a cat or something. And
The classic, nice suburban house, 2.5 kids.
yeah, well, 2.5.
2.5.
Maybe 3, who knows. But yeah, I have a vision for it. It's cool to be able to be like, oh, like, home is wherever I am, so wherever I wind up, I'll just make it my home, and I'll just make it however I want it.
I think at the same time, that's a really healthy way to go about it, because I've had moments where I've been really attached to a place where I'm not, and it just kind of eats away at you. It's like, well, I want to go back there. I have to go back and but to really compartmentalize it in your brain, it's like, home is where I'm at. I'm home.
Yeah.
It's comforting. It's a way to, my city can be new and unfamiliar and all that, but I'm home here now.
Yeah. It's like, I'll make it home.
Yeah. Whatever happens, I know I can make this my home.
Yeah. And I think that kind of adds a layer of strength to you.
Yeah.
Because, some people, especially the younger folks, who are just entering college, 18, 19, they're like, oh, I'm going to go home for spring break or whatever. I'm like, I never really understood that. I'm just like, going home? Like, you're not home here? Like, it's just, we have a very different view of going home. And a lot of people around me, they've had, these nice families and these nice houses to return to. And that's not been my case. So I think it adds a layer of independence when you can say, this is my home, this is where I retreat, this is mine, and I will make it the way I want it to be.
Yeah. I think, and especially nowadays, I've been encountering that more. Because when I first moved, it's just all a mess. But, now I'm going, I have a space. I can turn this into a living room. Mm-hmm. And I get some comments sometimes. I'll send a picture, and my mom will go, why would you ever buy that hideous rug? I go, it's my living room.
Yeah.
Right? And it's immensely comforting to develop your own space like that. My taste in rugs is probably awful, but it's my own,
Yeah, it's fun to piece it together.
Yeah.
Then you're like, this is my coffee maker, this is my silverware, this is my pot, this is my fan, this is my laptop. I don't know, it's nice, because then you're not dependent on anyone, and you're just
I actually, my family overall sort of pokes fun at me for that a lot, the not being dependent on others. Because my sister, for example, she sort of half moved out and then moved back in, and was always really connected with my mom. But I moved and I was like, I have a job now. It pays me. I will do everything. And she's like, no, if you need some support or if you need some extra, ask me. And I'm like, no.
I will not.
I won't ask you. And she's like, but I can help you. I don't need to be helped.
For real.
And it's a very strange change in mindset, because I remember a couple of years ago, I'd be asking her, I'd be sending a text, hey, can I go hang out with this friend, right? Do you approve of this? And now I'm just like, I can make do. Even though my finances are tight sometimes, I make do.
Exactly, yeah. And I think the sooner someone can make the transition, the better, because that's just kind of how life is, and I feel like it can be kind of nice. I mean, when you're younger, of course, it's natural to to not make that transition. But I feel like the sooner you can establish that independence and realize that you are responsible for providing for yourself, like that's
it feels very grown up.
Yeah.
Like in almost in a silly way, right? Because I still perceive myself, I'm kind of young. You know, we're all, you know, early professionals, and it just feels like I'm an adult for one of the first things that actually feels like an adult. Because a lot of people say they go through their adulthood just kind of figuring things out and establishing that level of independence. It's like, oh, actually, I do know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it's very grounding.
Absolutely. Yeah. So do you live by yourself?
I live completely alone. I rent a 1-bed, 1-bath apartment over in Pittsburgh.
Nice.
Yeah. I looked for places that were close enough to the campus, and I really like tall buildings, so I wanted the highest up apartment as possible. You know, sort of soft requirement. And I looked around, and I found this one that fits my budget, and I was like, I want this one. And that's it. And that's the story of how I got it.
Did you grow up in a tall building?
No, actually. I grew up in just a single-family home, and then moved here, and everything's flat here.
Yes, it's quite flat.
And I'm like, I want to get away from that. And not that I want to get away from the region. I love this place, but I don't know what happened to me. I very quickly went like, I want to live in a, you know, multi-floor complex with a bunch of other people, which is completely different than what the rest of my family wants. They all want to get their like individual houses, and I'm sure one day I'll want to move to the suburbs and have a family of my own. But while I'm on my own, I want to be in one of the huge buildings.
Yeah, see what it's like at the penthouse, you know.
Maybe not the penthouse, maybe floor midway.
Yeah, you get a better view from up there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my view is just trees because I got it on the wrong side of the building.
Hey, that's a good view. I like having trees outside my window.
Well, it's nice knowing that other people aren't looking in.
Yeah, it is nice to have the privacy. Yeah. So for my kind of living situation, I'm living with a roommate, and I think this is the last time I'll be living with a roommate. And
trying to live alone after this?
Yeah. What I would like to do is get a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom townhouse.
Yeah.
To myself, so I have my own house basically, like my own driveway, like I keep the AC at what I want it to be, and like I pay the bills. My goal for pretty much for the end of the summer is to be financially, sustainably independent.
Yeah, and I think that goal is maybe amplified a bit here by being in Florida, this whole townhouse. That's, from what I've seen, it seems to be a really nice arrangements here.
Oh, yeah.
Like if I tried to get that where I'm at, I'm broke. I'm out of money.
Yeah, it's pretty feasible here.
Yeah, it seems. I think my sister ended up doing that when she was over in Orlando, but I couldn't tell you exactly.
Yeah, and it just reminded me of something that's been like on my mind lately. It's like as I gain my independence, I kind of see my vision coming together of what I want my life to be like long term, and it's kind of exciting because I see a path to get there. And like at this point, like I know my dream car that's reasonable. I know the equipment that I want, like the new laptop. I know. I still gotta find the right cameras and stuff, but
that's a nice camera.
It'll do. And but like I have a view of how I want the show set up. So like I see the next steps that I need to take, and it's encouraging because it's like, oh, okay, I see where I want to end up, and it's cool to be able to kind of work backwards from that a little bit. Yeah. So what's your vision of your future like?
Well, I mean, I have the immediate goals of like get through grad school and try to become a professor. That's like my number one. But it's really shifted because when I was in undergrad, I was just thinking I'm gonna learn, be independent, be all on my own. But definitely lately, I've been more family oriented. That is having a family. I'm really hoping to sort of move into roles that allow me to build up like maybe some wealth and have a nice place to live, because I would like to gear it towards like raising kids basically. And originally I just planned I'm going to be a professor and go travel the world and all this. And I think while some of that is going to be true, right, I'll do that for some years. I do see myself not quickly, but rather directly starting to settle down. I think there's a very straight path to like, I'll go travel and then I'll get a really nice job, I hope. I don't really have many side goals, like as far as, dream car and stuff like this. I like public transportation, so I'm hoping to just live in an area that permits that. But most of my dreams just lie in like being able to support a family in the future.
Yeah, that's a good goal. Well, is there anywhere in particular you want to travel to?
Yes, many places. Right now, I want to travel a bit around the United States. So towards the end of this month, I'll be going to Atlanta, which is so exciting. So excited to see a new city. I'm interested in traveling in, like, as far as the North American continent goes, the more northern areas. So when you mentioned Alaska, I was like, oh, I'd love to go to Alaska.
Oh, well, I know some great people there.
I actually, really funnily enough, I was just looking up like the other day what I could do to spend a summer like at sea in Alaska. And you mentioned that, I'm like, you literally did exactly what I was looking up.
Well,
so
I would recommend staying on the land. The sea is very demanding.
Yeah.
And being a deckhand is hard work.
Yeah.
And so I recommend checking out charter lodges. Like, that's a lot of fun. In fact, Kingfisher Charters is where I worked, and they hire a whole bunch of people every summer to go up there and work. And and if that's something that you're interested, or any of the listeners, I recommend looking that up. And also, there's a website called Coolworks, and they offer similar things where there's all these lodges looking for people to work from all over the country, and so if you're looking for an opportunity like that, then that'd be a good place to start.
Yeah, in general, that region, I'm extremely interested in the geography of this region.
Oh yeah, it's
beautiful mountains. I've come to love, and ironically, sitting here in Melbourne, Florida, 80 degrees and sunny, I have come to love below zero temperatures.
Oh, tell me about it.
So when there was a freezing chill that came through Pittsburgh, I was the only person out. I was like, I'm loving this. I walked around my city, enjoyed the snow, and I went, I have to chase after this in some regard. So definitely some northern places, but a lot of my interests lie on the entire other side of the world. I would very much like to go to Southeast, East and Central Asia, pretty much all of Asia. In my most immediate interests would probably be going to like Malaysia, Indonesia, that sort of Southeast Asian region. I'm hoping sometime in the future to reach out to some professors there and see if I can come visit the universities there, because that would just be a brilliant experience. And then I'm really interested in going to China, not moving permanently, because I have people here that I'd like to stay connected with and probably have a family here, but there's a lot of really beautiful cities there, and like I said, I've been chasing after the really tall buildings, so I think there's some beautiful places to explore, and there's also some amazing academic institutions over there. I think there's a lot of room for meaningful collaborations. I know a lot of people, and of course this is almost natural to do, there's a lot of people that stick to the USA. I will collab with this university, that university, all across the USA. I'm like, I want to collaborate with the university on the other side of the world, because I think there really is a lot of room for this. I got a sort of interesting email the other day, and it was in completely Mandarin Chinese.
What did it say?
More or less, it said that there were some faculty or some representatives from Chongqing University coming to Carnegie Mellon University, which is right near my apartment. And I was like, huh. And so later this week, I'm going to show up and just see what happens, because that's a collaboration I would love to make. Now, granted, I couldn't tell you how, accurate this is, or whether the email was received in error, but Google Translate goes a long way.
Wow, that is so interesting.
And then beyond that, I want to go to more like Central Asian regions, maybe sometime a couple decades from now, go spend time traveling to Russia, Kazakhstan, that kind of area, because the person I'm currently with, that's where they're from.
Oh.
Not literally from, but that's where their family is. So it would be nice to go visit.
Wow, that would be quite the adventure, huh?
So very, very, very big on the international traveling, yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that's like one of the ultimate ways we can think out of the box as academics, because
Yeah.
like you said, there's a lot of work going on between universities domestically, but think of all the potential there is for like international work, and
Yeah.
and I think people are quick to be like, oh, we don't get along with this or that country, but it's like that country is comprised of individuals, and maybe those individuals have some interests that align with yours, and maybe you can contribute to their work and they can contribute to yours, and there's room for collaboration that other people might not think of because they're not willing to take that leap of faith to go explore it.
And this is actually really an important perspective academically, because if I'm working on math here, the interests of another country versus my government versus their government matters so much less than another researcher going, I also work on this, right? If I'm, let's say there's some, some type of surface or equation I'm interested in, and some guy across the world is interested in it, then our interests are so much more aligned than even the people sitting next to me right here. Because our goal is to work on the same thing, right? And when any researcher, when the goal is to further development in an area or make progress in an area, you're unified by that. You're not necessarily, unless you're working directly for them, bound by whatever geopolitics might be at play.
Yeah.
We're fundamentally people that are enjoying our research.
And you have a common goal.
Absolutely. If I can enjoy my work and I want to develop something, then there's no reason I can't work with anyone else who wants to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great way to make peace between countries, because
There's a lot to be said as far as like diplomacy is concerned. I think having academics from different countries bounce back and forth between each other
it's a good start.
is a really, really nice way to make some connections, because universities are where a lot of things happen.
Yeah.
If I go talk to the students of another university, that's me bringing my work, my legacy to another area that might have otherwise said, no, we don't want to interact.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if you can be a good representative of
Yeah.
our country, then maybe people over there will have a better perspective of who we are and what we do. And,
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because people can be so quick to judge, or a lot of times I feel like people are flooded with certain propaganda about other places, and they get these preconceptions. But at the end of the day, we're all people. Like, we're not that different. I mean, we have different, idiosyncrasies, of course, and we have different cultures and societies and so on. But I think in general, if you're nice to people and if you're working on something that they really enjoy doing, and they're doing something that you enjoy doing, then I feel like you can get along for the most part.
Yeah, and you can see that a lot with even like just professors in general. If you look at the professors from, Florida Tech, for example, they're from all different regions, not even just the United States. There's quite a lot of international, faculty here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a lot of people that are quick to go, I want to just stay here, when most of the faculty we have aren't even from here. So it's like, you want to be faculty somewhere, reasonable odds say that you might want to travel somewhere.
Yeah, that's a really good observation. Like, my faculty advisor, he was from Greece, and I had teachers from India, and I had teachers from China, and I've had teachers from, all over the place.
And a lot of people, pay it no mind. I'm paying to be here. My professors give me the course content I need, and will simultaneously be, this nation is, not doing something great. We don't like them. What? Why is there this disconnect when you're being taught by representatives of this very place?
Yeah, for real. And this was a big reason I didn't want to go and work for the military. Because in chemical engineering, there's like a few paths you can take after you graduate, and one of them is definitely working for the military. That's one of the stronger options. And just fundamentally, I was like, I don't want to work on some technology that's going to be used to harm somebody that I've never met on the other side of the planet. It's like, what did that person ever do to me? What did that society ever do to me? Like, I'm being harmed far more by the corrupt politicians in our own country than I am by these people across the world. So why would I dedicate my life to harming them? Like, I don't think that's a and not to discredit the military. I mean, my parents are both veterans. I mean, they're both retired Air Force officers. So I fully respect the military and everything they do, and for defending our freedom and for being the sword that intimidates our enemies. And so I highly respect the military. I don't want to give the impression that I don't. It just wasn't the path for me, and I think treating wastewater is something we can all agree on, and I think that's a pretty peaceful endeavor, and I think academics is a very peaceful endeavor, and I don't know. I think if our generation just focuses more on these peaceful endeavors, then maybe we can make a more peaceful planet, because that way we can do things that we all agree upon instead of contributing to conflicts that we may not agree with.
I think there's also something to be said about, like, a lot of people who end up working, say, government contract work. There are many cases, but a lot of the time it's research and development, right? I'm creating something new. And there are uses beyond, whatever the government might be immediately using them for. A lot of the research of the past century, 2 centuries, done specifically, facilitated by the government, has come to improve everyone's lives.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So I do see why a lot of people go, into that area. But there's, a lot of precautions to take. I was originally, when I had mentioned when I started college, I wanted to do aerospace, and then I wanted to do physics. That whole time I was interested in working for NASA. There's huge things to be said about the contributions of this, right? You can work for the government, and there's plenty of benefits for this. But simultaneously, I would say, people should be wary of, where their contributions go. Mm-hmm. I had a friend tell me, I won't say him by name, but he told me about his experience. He had an interview with some Department of Defense program, and the interviewer asked him point blank, if you work on this, it will be used to kill people. Do you want this job?
Wow.
And it's a really heavy thing to put on someone who's just a researcher, right? Someone who studies applied math and just works on modeling systems, to suddenly put this burden on them when they're just doing contract research for someone.
Yeah.
It's very strange, how this has come to be in our society. And I would say definitely exercise caution. There's reasons to do everything, but...
Yeah, it's good to know that your reasons are right, and that's something that's important for young people to hear. It's like it's important to think of the reasons for beginning some endeavor and the results of your endeavors. Some people might just be like, oh, it's just a job, I'm just signing up and going for it. And it's like, yeah, I get it, man. You got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Like, trust me, I get it.
Especially nowadays.
Yeah, for real. I mean, gas was like $3.76. At the end of the day, though, it's like, it's good to keep in mind the reasons for which you do things. And I think if your reasons are strong enough, then you'll do very well. Like, I think my reasons for doing this are very strong, and the reasons that I've started the club and decided to become a salesman are very strong, and I believe those will motivate me to be successful, and I think that if whoever's listening, if their reasons are strong enough to do something good, then they'll be successful too. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So is there anything else you'd like to cover?
Not particularly. We talked about, most things. Yeah,
covered a lot of ground. So is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience or students around the world?
I guess I can, this is maybe a little shameless, but I can slightly shout out my city of Pittsburgh, because it really flies under the radar. When I first applied, I saw that there is a university and there's a professor I want to work with. That is all I knew about the city. I had heard the name somewhere before. And I'm sure people who are, immensely into sports will know of the Steelers, will know of the Penguins, the Pirates, all the teams there. There's a lot of sports. However, it really is a place that has surprised me. It's certainly not, this New York City metropolis booming and millions and billions of people. Not billions, but it is really lively. There are a lot of places, especially in the United States, that you might not, think about. There's, like Columbus, Ohio, Pittsburgh,
Boston.
Yeah, I mean Boston. Boston's fairly well known. St. Paul, Minneapolis, those two cities. There's some cities in Iowa that are way bigger than you might expect. And I think it's worth, like saying that there are really strong opportunities in these places, either for healthcare or IT or really any position you might be looking for.
Yeah, college.
Yeah, college especially. But definitely worth just like checking them out.
Yeah, and it's definitely worth being open-minded about,
Yeah.
And it's good to explore the opportunities wherever they may be, because you never know which one's going to be the door that opens, and I think it's worth knocking on as many as you can to find the right one for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just one more thing I'd like to say, you're actually the first person who reached out to me to be on my show, and so I just want to say thank you for having the courage to contact me, and I really appreciate your inquiry, and I respect the courage that you had to contact me and ask me, and I figured if you have the courage to ask me, then I have the courage to come to you and to give you a platform and a chance to have a voice. And so I just want to say for anybody listening to this episode, if you're happy to, if you would like to talk to me, then I'm willing to hear you out. And if you approach me with genuine curiosity and good intent, then I will listen to what you have to say. And I don't have a whole lot of money or freedom to travel right now, but my goal is to be able to travel around the country and to interview people, and I want to keep my door open to anybody who's interested. So just shamelessly, like for my own plug, I just want to say I'm easy to contact. You can find my contact information on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to me for any inquiries about anything, and I'm just always happy to help out people however I can and to give people the chance to have a voice like I was able to provide for you today. So
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So Lily, thank you very much for being on the show. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you for having me.